This is something we haven't talked about a lot on our channel. And that is when we were engaged, we argued a lot.
We did.
We were going back and forth a lot.
We did.
And it wasn't about the color of the flowers.
No.
It was just about stuff. To the point where my dad was like, at one point, I was a little concerned for you guys. No, let's go there.
Like a really bad mom. Quote unquote, I'm tired of people in my race. So I need to find me somebody white. This is how I knew that Brian
Don't do it.
was going to be a great physical partner.
Don't tell them. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Let's Get Deep podcast, where we share conversations about our lives that most people would never. We gonna go there in these podcasts, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all. We actually recorded the first episode, and we made an executive decision that it was a little too deep.
Too deep.
For the first one.
Yeah.
So we hear number two. But
so
it's really number one.
We gonna make it a little lighter. Then if y'all want to see the deep, y'all just go ahead and go to that next episode.
But here's the thing. We've been doing this for years, really.
We have been doing this for quite some time. Actually, we started YouTube doing sit-down conversations because we wanted to just talk about real stuff and real things and real life. And we wanted to create a community that was about real life situations that we could be transparent with and grow. And wow, it has grown.
Yeah, we definitely never imagined ourselves in this position. Very grateful for it. But the reality is this is our passion. Yeah. Like these types of conversations, taboo conversations, conversations that might make people a little uncomfortable. Like that's what we love to talk about and create transparency around. So I'm excited.
I'm excited. Look at us.
I know.
Would you look at us? Who would have thought?
Look at us.
But to give a little background, we have been doing YouTube for 5 years. Yep. And it grew exponentially throughout the course of our time. And then we are also on Instagram and TikTok and all the things. Now we're doing a podcast because at this point, our sit-down conversations were...
We got away from them a little bit.
We got away from them and we wanted to bring them back. And we said, why not bring them back from a podcast perspective? A little introduction about us is that we have 2 kids, Aza and Elijah. Aza is almost 4. Elijah is almost 8 months, and we have been married for almost 9 years.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We have been dating for 4 years prior to marriage.
First of all,
and then have known each other longer.
Do y'all even do that anymore?
I don't think so.
Let me tell you, I don't think I've met somebody recently that have dated for 4 years. Now, maybe because we're older now. We were young. Maybe the time spent is time past. Like, we can't be wasting time. I don't know. But either way, y'all not taking away my time. I tell people all the time that we have been dating for, we've been together for 13 years.
Together for 13. Because we don't get all that 13. And then we've been married
for almost 9. And our dating was not no regular dating. Like, we didn't just have like the little frills and a little, we're on the clouds. No, it was real.
So let's talk about that because I think that's probably a little bit better conversation to start this podcast.
Let's a little deep. Let's inch in there.
We have shared our dating story on a number of other podcasts, actually. Yeah. And we've shared our story on YouTube before, but there's definitely some details that we did not get into. So that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah. We started dating in 2009.
How did we meet?
We started talking in 2009.
Yeah, we met.
We met at a grad party. So
through mutual friends. So my best friend was dating your best friend at the time.
Yes.
And here's the kicker. Here's the part we're going to get some clarification. Because while Lexi and I met, I was also dating one of her friends at the time.
Yes.
Go ahead, give your disclaimer.
So she was a close friend. I had no intention of dating Brian. I wasn't interested in him at all. A lot of people say like, were you, girl? No, I was not.
She really wasn't, y'all.
I had my own man at the time.
Who? No, I'm playing.
I did. I don't want to say his name. I don't want to say his name. But I had my own, my own thing at the time, and I was cool. And me and Brian didn't even know each other when they were really dating. I only knew him through her. during that time, long story short, she ended up breaking it off with you.
Yep.
And I really don't think you guys were compatible because apparently there was a lot of things that you thought were real that weren't.
Well, unfortunately, she definitely, I think she fell in love with not fell in love, but she liked the idea or the concept of me, but the reality of it struck her a little different.
Yeah.
I was a church boy. I was a little bit of a square, a little self-righteous, and
A little
self-righteous. Had
Maybe
to
a
overcome
lot.
some things. And I think she fell in love with the idea of that, but the reality is we were just very different. And she put up a portrayal of herself that matched where I was, but in reality, we weren't on the same page. Yeah. And I think that just caused a discrepancy. It was time to move on.
Which was, we were young, but
yeah.
So I did not start talking to Brian until, honestly, she was 1 year younger than us. And she decided, she didn't want to be a part of our friend group.
Right.
And then she just wanted to be my friend. And so I made it clear. I was like, Brian's still going to be around our friends. Is that okay? Are you good with that? She was like, no. Oh, well, no. First she said yes. And then it eventually got weird when you started to become, cool with our friend group and be around. And then she cut it off with me. And I still don't know to this day why. We haven't even talked since then. She literally just stopped talking to me.
Because here's the thing. We were hanging out in group settings.
We never hung out privately at all.
Lexi and I never hung out privately. We were it was like you're an acquaintance. You're someone I know, and you're there while other people are there.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think Lexi and I started to become more like good, decent friends at that point.
Yeah.
And Lexi asked permission. Is it okay if Brian and I are friends?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I don't care.
Like,
no
big
deal.
It's fine.
It
was not
later.
fine. It was not fine.
1 week later.
And I remember calling her and she just did not respond to my calls. And to this day, we never talked since then. But I tell people all the time is that I never hung out with him privately, never did anything with him. And I would have never did that if she would have stayed in my life. So there was a level where I felt like God let that relationship go because I know that I would never be where I am today because I am a loyal friend and I know I would never have done that.
Yeah, we probably would have never even become friends.
No, I just wouldn't.
Let alone dating.
I would not have let that happen, but kind of glad it did.
We'll let that one go. It was worth the sacrifice.
But I do believe that the time that we have spent getting to know each other and the time that we have been dating, like it was so good because I feel like it set a very firm basis for our marriage. Now, a lot of people may not agree with this. Some people believe that you can get, and let's go
there.
Some people believe that maybe they can get to know somebody in a year and then date. They probably could. I know I'm like, woo.
Okay, all right. Let's pause. There's more to talk about with our dating. That's fine. But let's pause there because I want to explore that a little bit. We all hear stories of people who are like, I met him and 1 month later, we were married. And we've been married for 52 years and still happy to this day. Yeah. We all know someone with that story, which I cannot personally comment on because it is just so contrary to how I think. But I'm not opposed to the Holy Spirit leading in whatever way he wants to lead.
Yes.
And using unorthodox timeline method means whatever. I leave room for the Holy Spirit to do what he does.
Do you think... Oh, go ahead.
What I don't leave room for is people making quick decisions on their own and calling it the Holy Spirit because you just want to move into a place of marriage or you just want to move quickly.
Yeah, I can tell you that I was not like ready to be married so quickly.
But we were young though, and that's the other hard part.
But I know that it's not because I know for me it's not because I was young.
I agree with that.
I will say my parents decided to separate right when me and Brian started dating. So when that happened, we were like, I think my whole world kind of shook. Not because of their marriage, but just because I never wanted to be a person that was with somebody for so long and then we ended up separating. So I got into this weird way of like, I'm about to read everything that I need to know about myself. I need to read all these books, self-development books, marriage books, all these books. And I kind of consume myself in making sure that we were quote unquote ready to be married, which.
Do you think we took it too far?
With what?
Preparation. Do you think we over prepared? Do you think that we needed to wait that time? Do you think we needed to do all the work we did before we were engaged?
Yes, I do think so. I think and this is the truth. This is my truth. I know everybody doesn't believe in my truth, but I believe that there are certain things that just my perspective, whatever you want to call it. But I believe that you can meet somebody tomorrow and decide you're going to marry them. You can meet somebody 6 months from now, decide to marry them. You can meet somebody 3 or 4 years, and decide like, okay, I want to marry them. My thought is whatever you do in that one day, whatever you do in those 6 months, whatever you do in those 4 years matter. I think the shorter the time frame, the harder marriage can be. Doesn't mean you won't have a beautiful marriage. Doesn't mean that your marriage will not thrive. But I do believe that time well spent, that's important, well spent is going to create make it not as hard. I will say that.
I do agree with that. I think that
marriage is hard, period. Marriage can be difficult. But how difficult do you want it to be? And there are some circumstances where maybe you have to marry somebody sooner than later. But I don't believe that.
Like what? Getting a green card? Why do you have to meet someone sooner?
Sorry? I mean, that does happen, but.
I know someone. But why would you have to marry someone?
I think because of family situation. I don't know. Because of family situations.
What family situation?
There are cultural situations. Like cultural. I don't know, but you would have to marry somebody.
Maybe.
I think of somebody we know. Like you would have to. There are certain situations that maybe your household is uncomfortable.
Have to or is more comfortable.
Okay, more comfortable, whatever.
All right.
But I do think that whatever the time frame, I feel like it can even make it harder. And at the end of the day, do you want to put in the work? My marriage can be easier for other people, but that doesn't mean I don't put in work. Marriage can be harder for others. At the end of the day, you have to show up and put in work. So if you're not willing to do that, that is on you, regardless if you met somebody yesterday or 6 months.
You know what I find interesting, though, is stereotypically you hear about a lot of men who don't want to get married because they haven't saved up enough, or they're not financially stable, or they want to own a home, or they want a career, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But I don't hear a lot of people saying, I'm waiting for us to be emotionally mature enough to handle marriage.
Man.
Right? Like, I'm waiting for us to go through difficult seasons so I can see her when pressure is applied.
And not just a little argument.
I'm not so much as a little argument.
We're talking about a season. But do they need to go through a season?
It is my personal perspective, not necessarily a season, but it is my personal perspective that you should see your partner at a very low point so you can understand who they turn into at that low point. Because Brian, when he's happy, is different than Brian when he is stressed, overwhelmed, hurt, struggling. It's a different
What's a low
me.
point? Are you talking about?
I'm not saying you have to wait 8 years until they become depressed and then you're like, all right, we're finally ready to get married.
Okay.
But a low point meaning it could even be a bad day. Mm-hmm. But I need to see where you're at when you have pressure applied in your life. And how do you respond to that? And now, how does that impact our relationship? If you get married, because this is my fear, if you get married and I've never seen you have a really bad day, you've been number one, putting on a front of happiness because you don't want to mess with things. You don't want the happiness to be done between you two. You don't have your first argument. Or if you truly are just happy, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if I don't see you in that and I'm going into marriage just not knowing what you look like on a bad day, and I don't mean like physically, but emotionally, what you look like on a bad day, that's uncharted territory that I don't want to be in.
I agree. And I don't think that
personally, my opinion. And y'all can comment. This is a great place. I want everyone to comment on this because I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
I'm curious. This has to do with the longevity of the timeline of your dating leading up to marriage. It does impact it because you can make the argument, well, I'm just a happy person, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? I don't know.
I think it's more than just a bad day. I think you're talking about more of like some hard times, like difficult seasons, not just like, oh, you made me mad today. Ugh,
Or even
can't
difficult
stand you.
conversations.
Difficult conversations. We had some very difficult conversations when we were dating. And it went from race, it went from family dynamics, it went from me thinking about I was going to move. Like, it was a lot.
Oof, I'm still mad at you for that.
And it went from even dealing with some of the parent situations. Like, one thing that we have not really talked about at all
Here we go. Oh, God.
was how my dad treated Brian. And there was a little bit of needing it to happen.
No, as an adult, as a man, I don't blame him for what he put me through.
Yeah. Can I share what happened when Brian first met? I know you ready for it, man? You okay?
I'm a little squirmy.
You okay?
We've never shared this publicly. But you share the first one.
Okay.
When we first met.
Okay.
And I'm going to share the basketball story. I can do it. I'm a big boy.
I thought that's what I was going to share.
Oh, that was not the very first time I met him.
When did you meet him?
When he came in the basement, we were watching a movie.
Oh, not that.
Okay, share the basketball story.
I was going to share the basketball story because that was just a quick high and by. But the first real encounter that my dad had with Brian was when he was playing basketball with my brother.
Yep.
And we were going to hang out and watch a movie afterwards. And so my dad officially met him. And so my dad was like, "Hi, how you doing?" And he was like, "Hey, what's up?" Now, my dad is the epitome of probably every old black TV show. So you think about, a little bit of James Evans, I don't know, but he is that very you will respect me. You will talk to me like you have respect. You would just make sure that you treat me like I'm a human being, and also I'm the father of a girl that you are trying to talk to. And there's just courtesy that you do. And my dad is he's the one that you look at and be like, oh, let me sit up straight. Like, that's my dad. And he said, "What's up?" to my dad. And when I tell you, I was about to fall over. I could not believe he said that. And I just paused. I didn't know what to say to my dad because I was scared of my dad. And so I was like, maybe he'll let him go. And we walked away.
Follow-up question.
And then we walked away. And then Brian, we came upstairs again. And my dad asked, "Is it cold? Are you guys good? You need me to turn up the heat?" And he was like, "Nah, you good." Oh my God. I was like,
I am, to this day, it has been 12, 13 years since it happens. To this day, when I hear it, my whole body seizes up. My heart stops. I stop breathing.
Brian said, "Nah, you good."
I said, "Nah, you good."
So my dad took it upon himself.
Oh my God.
Every time Brian came up to him, he would say, "You stand up and you say, 'Hello, Mr. Cartwright, how are you?'"
He said, "I don't want to hear anything else but 'Hello, Mr. Cartwright.' That is, I don't want to say, 'Hey.' I don't want 'Hi.' I want 'Hello, Mr. Cartwright.' You stand up and you shake my hand."
And so Brian thought that there was some sort of, what's the word?
Familiarity?
No, not familiarity. I'm talking about even afterwards when you knew that's what my dad wanted. He thought that he could say like, "How you doing, Mr. Cartwright? Hey, Mr. Cartwright, how are you?" No, it's, "Hello, Mr. Cartwright, how are you doing?" I
couldn't believe it. I was
and
like,
so
what's
and
happening?
he would sometimes, Brian would sometimes think it was okay to wave, and he was like, "No, you shake my hand every time." So it was hard for a while.
And here's the reason. Because I grew up in a home where my mom talked about chivalry, but I didn't necessarily always see it in their relationship. I didn't see my dad opening doors. I didn't see my dad, talking a certain way. We were a very informal family, stereotypically so.
Yeah.
And then the hard part was that obviously there's cultural differences that, people make fun of and talk about white people and how they are, in their own homes and, informal and being disrespectful to their parents. And there was an element of that, but it wasn't nearly to the degree of stereotypes. keep in mind, I'm also 18 years old. Like, I'm a kid. And there was definitely a learning curve that had to happen. And I think people see me now and they're like, oh, Brian, so this, Brian, so that.
Yeah,
there was a period of time we had to develop that strongly.
Yeah, you are super chivalrous now. Like, Brian, you know, back in the day, I had to tell Brian to open my door. I had to tell Brian to do certain things. And mind you, we weren't officially dating during that time, but that was definitely something that was like a requirement for me. And it may not be a requirement for everybody, but it was a requirement for me. You open my door, you know, hold my hand when I walk down, you walk on one side of the sidewalk. Like, that is chivalry to me. And so Brian did not have that in his family. And I think they talked about it, but again, what you said, like, it wasn't.
We didn't see the practice of it.
Yeah.
But also, there are things when you date younger, there are things that you need to learn because you're not just learning each other, you're learning yourself at that point too.
Yeah.
If we were dating now at 32, you better have already figured this out.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel.
That's true.
There are certain things in life you better already have figured out. You're an adult. You're a man. You're a woman.
Do you think that you being with Asa and somebody did that to you, how would you act?
I wouldn't act as strong as your dad, but I would be serious about it.
Yeah, I think I would want there to be a little on the respectful side.
Absolutely. No question.
I would definitely want you to stand, like, respect me as a parent of, you know, the girl that you want to date.
Absolutely. And I will teach Asa the same way your dad taught you, because if that happened, Asa would be falling out and tripping in her heart because she would be knowing how I'm about to come.
And that's what I mean. Like, it was so cringy during that time, but it was also so necessary. And now, being an adult, I can look back and say, like, my dad was trying to teach you a lesson without kicking you out the door.
And I do give him a lot of credit for that, because he could have.
He could have kicked you out the door.
He could have said, no, this isn't working. This isn't it. My daughter has a standard. I have a standard. We're done here.
Yeah.
He gave me grace to learn. And it was a learning process.
Yeah.
And it was a sometimes slower process than it should have been.
Yeah.
But I did learn. And I think you see the fruit of that, though. I think you can tell, like, I hope that when it comes time for Asa, if that were to happen with a boy she's dating, I would be able to tell the heart of him. Yeah. More importantly, and let the heart outweigh actions in that time frame, because if you have the right heart and you get instruction, then you grow.
Yeah.
Now, if I give you instruction, you don't grow, that's a problem for me. But that's been our whole mantra is, you know, our ability to grow and mature and develop and learn to be the people we want to be.
Yeah.
But not falling in love with potential.
Yes, I was just going to say that, is that I think that and it makes me feel good that my dad knew that you were more than just potential. Yeah. That you actually followed through with certain things. Like, I only told you one time. I remember I only told you one time of, hey, I want you to open my door. And I literally was doing this right when he was walking out of my house. And I knew my dad was watching him. I was like, Brian, you need to open my door. You need to open my door. And I only needed to tell you once. And then you got it. Mm-hmm. And you never questioned it again or ever, you know, thought that was right. It's like, no, this is what I should be doing. Yeah. And you learned so quickly. And it showed me that there was progress being made, which is so much different than how I feel like some people date, is that they do date potential, but they don't see progress, or they don't even acknowledge progress. So on one side, you have people that are falling in love with potential and they never see progress and they still want to be with the person. And then you have the other side, they're not falling in love with potential. They see a little progress and still don't care. Mm-hmm. It's a balance.
I think it is tough. And it's like, how much progress do you need to see before you're ready to take that next step? Yeah. And how far along do I want you in your journey before I feel comfortable giving my life to you? Yeah. Because you are becoming one. And there it is. I think I get frustrated because I think some people, if you're not married, you don't realize the weight of marriage and what it means. That this is not just lifelong, but this is, you're with this person every single day. Bruh. You don't get to take a break. You don't get to walk away. You don't get to just take a month off because you need me time. It doesn't work that way.
You are choosing a partner for the rest of your life. This is not what some of these celebrities say like you graduated out of marriage. I think that's ridiculous.
What are we talking about?
But this is somebody that you are with for a lifetime. And for me, I remember thinking about this as a child, not as a child, but as a teenager, where that thought wasn't exciting for me. That thought scared me because I wanted to make sure, like, dude, am I really going? Because I don't want this to mess up. I don't want this to mess up. And I also have to realize that in myself, like, am I really going to take the time out to make sure this is the person I want?
That you did overthink things though. And so
I did.
If you look at our relationship, Lexi would oftentimes say, well, we're so different. Like, how are we possibly going to be together the rest of our lives because we're so different? We think different. Like, the idea of thinking different scared you. And I think it's also because your parents separated and because you poured into learning about marriage and relationship and doing all these things. The idea of us not being on the same page was like an insurmountable issue.
I was like, oh my gosh, should we even do this? Should we even be here?
I can't tell you how many times, like you said, we're done. I'm done.
I think we're good. I think we're done.
I'm done.
And I think the perverted version of that is that I was an overthinker and I was a person that didn't, that was uncomfortable with uncomfortability.
Yeah.
Like I was uncomfortable with uncomfortability. What I had to learn is that, will you stick it out with me? Will you be willing to understand and be in the trenches with me and we get out of this together? I saw there was a blessing of that, of not being that girl that was, yes, I love love. Yes, I love, the stories of them, but I was
you
also
were in fantasy land.
I wasn't in fantasy land. Yeah, I wasn't in fantasy
But
land.
you also, it's different because we know people who have been married for 5 years and got divorced. Your parents were together for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And separated. So you've seen people who are in love, have gotten through hard times, who raised kids together, who had difference of opinions, and still stuck it out 20 years and decided at that time it was still too much. I think that scared you because it was like, what type of foundation do we need to build to make sure that 20 years from now is not the breaking point?
Yeah.
Like, it's not where young people are just getting together carelessly and giving up too easily. Yeah. You saw the opposite. In fact, our friend group had multiple parents who divorced later in life.
Yeah.
After they all went to college.
Yeah.
So we looked at our foundation, and I think it propelled us to now have very hard conversations throughout our dating, because we're like, if we don't have these hard conversations now, we get surprises in marriage about each other. We all of a sudden learn things that we never knew about each other. Yeah. It was going to create like a weak foundation that could manifest later in the relationship.
And I will say that I look back and how concerned I was, and it's crazy to see like just how amazing being with you has been. I think sometimes people get afraid of being bored or being tired or being
that's so
weird
funny
to see. Weird to see like each other every day. But I can say that I have loved every version of you, every version of being with you, every moment, every transition. It has not been easy, but I look back and be like, man, I really, really married my best friend.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, the other day, we were just watching Bridgerton, and it was just so fun rewatching the show with you because of just like, man, I love how we just love to be with each other.
Yeah.
It is truly a best friend moment, for real. But also the love is there. You are different parts of like the greatest aspects of being a partner.
Thank you. Yeah. That was beautiful. I wasn't ready for that commercial break. That was very nice.
Yeah, but I think that's why I'm so kind of gung-ho on like making sure you know each other, because man, the benefits of being with somebody that is your best friend, I'm telling you, you really, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 9 years. I've been seeing your face for 13 years. It's wild.
That's why I kind of like laughed when you said that, is because I feel so different from that perspective of like, how are you not bored? Or so you're with the same person. we are not bored with each other.
No.
We just aren't. And I do know that that is something you have to be very careful and aware of in a relationship that goes the distance, because I can see how relationships would get there. In fact, I can even see how we could let our relationship get there. I can see it. You can get caught in monotony. You can get caught in schedules and just doing things the same way every day. Yeah. If you're not intentional, if you're not proactively working together like that. But that's just not been our story.
I think if there was something that I feel like is the thing that has kept us from not being bored, I think we care a lot about putting in the work to make sure our relationship is not unfulfilling. We want to make sure that we are fulfilled in different aspects, whether that is our intimacy, whether that is our sex life, whether that is us hanging out, making sure that we are not letting our us being parents, us being daughter, brother, being a son, like all of that does not overpower us being a wife and a husband.
So you talked about relationships that are not rushing, but moving quickly to that point, not having had like full conversations. How do you think that people are just not having conversations and not talking through things? Do you think that they're scared to get deep? Do you think that they are avoiding it or just not aware of it? Or you think they're rushing through those conversations and then just moving forward?
I think that, and it depends on age, because I think age is a matter. I think people feel lonely. People feel lonely in our age. I'll talk about our age. I feel like people that have been single for a while can feel lonely. And there are certain times where they have weak moments. There was a TikTok the other day that was talking about like, what do they say? Like, I know my worth, but sometimes I'll be putting a sale price on it. Like, it was a sale. And I think that people sometimes have weak moments, and I understand that and empathize with that. And so when they meet a good man, but they're not really the right person for them, I think it causes people to slack. When I will also say from a younger perspective, and I'll talk about people that are like maybe in their early 20s or 19, whatever, I don't know if they know what questions to ask. I don't know if they know all of the ways that they can get to know. I don't know if their brains have fully put in together, like, how do I prepare? I mean, you can't really prepare for marriage, but how do I make sure this is the right person for me? I don't know if a lot of people would know that.
I know one person, and all the people that I know one person who got engaged, and they, through counseling, discovered some things of the way they think that were not compatible, and he walked away. Yeah. And it left him heartbroken because he wanted to be with this person. He loved and was in love with this person so much, yet still found the courage to say that our dynamic will not work. Mm-hmm. I think that's very powerful because it doesn't happen very often.
He said something, I know you're talking about, he said something so powerful. He was like, I love you enough to not divorce you. Whew. And I was like, that's real.
That's different.
That's different. Like, I know that we're not, it was almost like it felt to me like, I know that we're not going to make it. As much as I love you, we're not going to make it.
Here's my thing. Could you make an argument of like, well, if you really loved each other, you guys can work through anything and you can overcome anything? It's possible.
But that's also saying that is your best.
And would you also have the life that you wanted to live?
Yeah, it's like,
are you settling?
You can fall in love with somebody that's not the right person. And I think saying, well, you just got to make it work. No, you can find a person that fits you. I'm still a believer that there is a right person for everybody.
The date
doesn't mean that you can't have multiple people. Like I'm not saying there's one specific person, but I do believe that there is a person for you.
I'm a big believer that the date that you need to just figure it out and make it work is your wedding date. Yeah. And any day before that, you have not made a covenant, you have not made a vow. You have the opportunity and the ability to seek God and say, am I making a bad decision?
Yes.
Should absolutely. I be walking away?
Should I be walking away?
And for him I'm talking about wedding planning. The date was set. The invitations were sent out and walked away.
I'll be honest. I don't even know if I would have the balls to do that. I don't know if I would have the
cojones.
I don't know. I do not know.
I don't know. And I also don't know if I would trust myself to make a decision that big.
I don't think
with that type of pressure.
At least, I feel like there's a level of me, depending on how intense it was. There would be a moment where, like, I know for a fact that I am not walking down the aisle not being all right.
So this is something
that is a deal.
This is something we haven't talked about a lot on our channel, and that is when we were engaged, we argued a lot.
We did.
We were going back and forth a lot.
We did.
And it wasn't about the color of the flowers.
No.
It was just about stuff, to the point where my dad was like, at one point, I was a little concerned for you guys, right? You may not guess it now, but like that's the place we were in. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, did you ever think while we were engaged, did I miss this? Am I wrong? Are we not supposed to be doing this?
I don't know if I ever questioned, because we were having hard conversations about our lives. What is this going to look like for us? What does this mean? Like when it came to, how we're raising kids, how we're going to handle, like just a lot of stuff. And it's so weird because back then I felt like that we were going through a lot and also dealing with a lot of family issues. I don't know why, but I felt like I was more concerned before the engagement, before I was during the engagement. Yeah. There was a lot of stuff that was going on with family that was throwing us completely off.
Yeah.
And true. It wasn't, to me, I felt like it wasn't fully us. There was times where I felt like it was fully us. There's times where I didn't. I don't see that being like it was fully us. And we got it together in enough time where I felt good about me. We had such a good time during, like, once we got married. The day of our wedding, we were completely okay.
The best. Yeah.
We were the best. We were like,
and we were good
so
leading up to the wedding.
Up to the wedding, yeah.
But our engagement was for just over a year, and there was probably a good 8 months.
I was going to say 7.
Yeah, it was a little shaky.
And we was trying not to have sex. That was hard. I think that was. I think we were trying not to have sex. That was also mentally.
And that's a whole different conversation that we're gonna have at a different date.
But no, I think that overall, I learned a lot by dating our dating season, and I think that the things that we learned during that time has helped us tremendously in our marriage. The things that we argued about, I felt like how we even argued dating never happened in our marriage. And not to say even the way that we argued when we were dating was crazy. It was more of like, we would just be like, I'm done. And
it was juvenile.
It was juvenile. It was juvenile. As soon as we got married, and after that hump, I felt like we didn't even act like that anymore. Mm-hmm. It was a huge shift. And a lot of people say like your first year is a hard year. Our first year was not our hardest year.
No, it wasn't.
Brian knew everything about me. There was nothing like, oh my gosh, this is so shocking.
Real quick, that's the last thing I want to say, is that because of the work we did, because of the time we took to really delve into every conversation, every dark corner of who we are and how we think about life, how we perceive things, because of that work, I can truly say there have been no surprises with you in marriage.
Yeah.
Not a one. Where I have been like, who is this person? Never. I didn't know you think like that. Do you really perceive life this way? I never felt that about you, because we did the work to know each other. Great. Now, the question still lingers out there that I want you all to address is, how does that relate to how people, quote unquote, should date? From a timeline perspective, from a getting to know each other perspective, how do you all feel? Do you feel that you have to put in that level of work to get to marriage, or do you think that we did it a little too deep?
Are we a little traditional? Is there a new age coming? Either way, my goal is that I'll be, 60 something years later saying that I think it was worth it.
And we're almost 9 years into this marriage and happy as we've ever been. So that's what I got to say about that.
All right, guys. Well, that is our time. Do people say that?
Sure. This is our first podcast. We don't really know what to say or how to wrap this up. So we're just going to say that, guys, we appreciate you tuning in to our first, which is really our second episode of our podcast. Let's Get Deep. We are so excited to keep sharing about our lives and about our experiences and talking about conversations that are not always easy.
Yeah. And we love to hear what you guys think about it. So check out our YouTube comments. Check out our YouTube and comment below and let us know what you think.
And hit us up on our Instagram at _the_Cole_Life_, our TikTok, The Cole Life, our YouTube, The Cole Life. We want to get to know you guys on those platforms too.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much.